Hello, this is Jason Akers from the Self-Sufficient Gardener podcast, and I want to do a quick video showing basically my plans and my implementation so far of my food forest system here at my cabin in my remote property over here in Western Kentucky. So the first feature you're going to notice is this little hill right here. Now on top of that hill, back behind it, you can't really see it right now, but back behind that hill is my old top bar beehive, which may or may not get bees this spring coming up. But right there on the top of that hill where you see the green right in front of that felled cedar tree is going to be a Langstroth hive that I've been working on with my dad. So it's going to go up there and we're going to put bees in it. Down below you'll notice a trench right here. This is not a swale. I know you're expecting to see swales on my property. That's not a swale. That's actually a drainage ditch. It keeps the road, the driveway right there, keeps the runoff down there, and keeps it from water from puddling in the middle of the driveway, although it does a little bit already, but this really keeps the bulk of it down and drain. So what it should typically do is come through there, and the water should come all the way down through here. Not a big deal. Something we see quite often in planning for a property is how to divert the water. So that water is going to rush through there pretty quick, and during a good rain, it's going to come off of all these hills right down here, all the way down to the property, and it's going to go into this ditch. So obviously permaculture, with the flow of energy, I want to slow that water down. I want to stop it if I can, harvest some of it, store some of it, whatever I need to do. I don't want it just to run through the property, erode, and take away all my topsoil. So the first big thing you'll see I've planted perennial rye in this ditch. It's probably taken off better here than anywhere else because of just the nature of the loose soil and things like that. But you can see it's still green. It's the middle of December. Well, it's actually the end of December. It's almost the beginning of January, and still have some green on that perennial rye there. So, sorry, I'm a little bit out of breath. I've been digging. I dug a little hole right there where I tried to let the water in through a little bit better rather than stopping. But it's kind of good. I want it to stop at certain places. So the other thing I've done is I've actually I did this yesterday. I took and cut up some oak logs that I was not able to use for shiitake production, and actually put them here in the ditch. And you see there's one there, there's another one, another one, another one, and then a big log. That big log is actually going to be a diverter into one of my swales, which runs back behind the garden, but we'll get to that in a minute. So basically these little wooden berms is kind of what I'm making. I'm making like a little wooden berm where the water's going to come and it's going to kind of hit and slow it down a little bit. I'm actually going to take and here in a minute I've got my drill with me. I'm going to drill some holes, 1-inch holes every so often. I'm going to try to put some hazelnut trees in there and see if they take. I've got hazelnuts coming, exactly 100 of them coming from Kentucky State Forestry Department, that are going to go all the way along there and all the way along there. So we're going to have them on the top side of that drainage ditch and on the bottom side. And I'm going to try to put one in each one of those berms, and fill it up with compost, put the hazelnut tree in there, see if it doesn't take. It should get a whole lot of moisture and a whole lot of decomposition from the logs, kind of like exposed hugelkultur essentially. Although we'll see how that takes. I'm only wasting 4 or 5 hazelnut trees there in those logs. The rest of them will go up on the sides. So that will kind of hide that ditch and hide that too. And plus, it's going to be a great place for those hazelnut trees to get some water coming down through that drainage ditch. And this place is going to hold a lot of water as well. Not to mention the water is going to kind of stop on those log berms as things start building up and start piling up against the back side of them. So up there on top of the hill, you see my composter. I'm getting ready to go rake up some leaves and kind of start filling that thing up. It's pretty empty right now. In fact, I shouldn't say pretty, it's all the way empty right now. So coming down over in this area right here, there's an apple tree, and then back behind another little apple tree. I'm kind of moving from back to front here, so you're going to kind of look down the hill that maybe you can't really see real well. Let me zoom in a little bit right there. So back right about there's an apple tree, right about there's an apple tree. And before anyone writes me a nasty note on YouTube or on my blog, yes, everything is spaced considerably closer than what people would normally space things. Also, something you may not be able to see, but at the there's a little log right there, or a little standing tree. Sorry, my finger's kind of right about there. There's a mason bee house. I'm going to show you that here in a future video, but it's actually occupied. So, sorry, where was I? Apple tree right there, right there, right there. Then there's a plum, a peach, and another peach over there. Let me swing wide. I know I'm getting out of the view of it. So there's a peach right there back behind that 5-gallon bucket, and there's another one right over roughly here. That other one's I'm just trying to start it. I tried to root it off of a peach tree my dad had, and so I'm trying to see if it's going to root. It may not root. So that's this semi-dwarf layer of the food forest. Back behind that will be trees like mulberry and pecan. I'm not going to be able to plant too many, but I'm going to try to probably clear off some of this forest back here. That's still on my property, but I want to be able to see the lake. The lake's just right behind that property, or right behind the little patch of forest right there, and I want to be able to see it. So I'm going to try to clear some of that off as well. But there will be mulberry and pecan trees back behind that, and I'm probably going to put a cherry tree right over in here somewhere. The problem with this area is shade. You'll see it's probably about 5 o'clock here right now. And granted, this is right after the solstice, but it's already pretty much enveloped in shade. So I've got this forest over here blocking the shade out, or blocking the sun out. I've got the cabin over here blocking the sun out. So basically where I've got the garden's the maximum area for shade just about in this area. So I'm a little bit worried about the shading properties. I may have to clear out some of this forest over here on this right side and see what happens from there. But you can see already it's kind of enveloped in shade. Now coming out, so we've talked about the semi-dwarf layer. We've talked about the layer behind that, which is the canopy layer essentially. Probably what I'll be putting down is probably some comfrey and some wheat or barley, kind of in between the trees, as well as best as they can grow in there. It's a little bit of an experimental thing. I'm probably going to have to try with the wheat and the barley. I'm not sure how well they're going to survive back in there, but so canopy, sub-canopy, and probably behind the canopy I'll put some pawpaw trees. I've got quite a few out here, and some I need to transplant that are already in sub-canopy back in the middle of my forest. So coming out one more layer, I'm going to put a few more hazelnut bushes, hazelnut trees, back behind the trellis, but in front of the semi-dwarf layer. So then you've got the trellis, which is going to get raspberries, blackberries. I've already got grapes planted there as well. In front of that, and probably in the wrong part of the layer, but blueberry bushes where I'm at don't get very huge, and I'm going to keep them kind of pruned back. But in front of that's going to be things like bush cherries and blueberries and things like that. Now, each one of those trellis posts is important to note, because one of them is going to get a pole with purple martin gourds on it. One of them is going to get a pole with a bluebird box on it, and one of them is going to get a butterfly box hanging down from it. And I ain't decided really which ones yet, but the butterfly box is going to be planted all around with things like maypop vine I'm going to transplant from my suburban property up in Georgetown, as well as things like butterfly flowers, purple coneflower, lavender, things like that butterflies like and will attract to pretty well. So I just hope the butterflies aren't eaten by the birds, but I don't think that's probably going to be a problem. I'm going to put a little bit of chicken wire fencing kind of around it to kind of protect the butterflies, let them get kind of back in there in like a little bit of a shelter kind of thing. So we've talked about basically the bush and the vining kind of layers, which I probably got things a little bit out of order, but this is just the way it seems to work for me best. And right there in the front part's the mulched and composted garden. Now back at the back of that garden is actually I've kind of buried some limbs in the mulch and compost, so it's almost like a hugelkultur bed, sort of, but not really. I've just kind of buried some some things back in there that are going to kind of decompose and probably serve a little bit better purpose. But I'll plant things in that back like like dill and asparagus and tomatoes and things like that, things that grow a little bit taller. I'm going to try to put some keyhole parts in there. I'm going to extend the garden out a little bit further towards the camera, so the garden's going to be a little bit further out, and put things like potatoes and other kind of things out there. And probably I will also put some strawberries out in front of that as well. Haven't decided about a swell yet. I may end up doing a swell. By the way, back behind the trellis, you may or may not be able to see it, is a swale. So if you're looking at the peach tree right there, right behind the trellis but in front of that peach tree, there's a swale back there that runs basically the entire length of that little ditch, that little valley right there. So that's another thing I forgot to mention. So coming out further, the garden's going to extend out further front as well. I've got a little raised bed right there. I've got garlic in right now. So I may add 1 or 2 more raised beds. I may do a pond right around here or right around there, just to kind of hold the water that kind of goes off the slope a little bit, kind of start its path downhill slowly. I've got plans for another pond way back in, let me zoom in a little bit, this area back here. I've actually got where they pushed the trees when they were clearing this area out. I'm going to kind of pile dirt up behind that and kind of make like a little bit of a dam. It's going to kind of hold water down there, so like a little bit of a pond as well that I'll probably use for ducks and things like that. So that's the plan so far right now as it stands. Again, I've got other places where I've got, you know, food and things growing. There's the greenhouse with my son's construction equipment. Sorry, let me move the camera around a little bit there and level it. Shiitake mushroom spawns are back in there. I'm probably going to move it because we're getting ready to put the septic system in. Got my rain barrel next to the cabin, as you can see. Zooming around here, there's actually my 2 fig trees are kind of hidden by those barrels. I'm trying to overwinter them, see how that works out. May or may not work. This area right here may end up getting you know, some kind of lower food producing vines and things like that. I still haven't moved some of my hazelnuts, some of my raspberries still have not been moved from back here. I've actually got strawberries a little bit further forward. There's the chicken coop and just an old barrel. I was actually going to try to put that barrel in the greenhouse, but it won't fit. So anyway, that's basically it for the, I guess you'd say, Zone 0, Zone 1, and Zone 2. Kind of, not all of my Zone 2, but at least some of it, of my food forest, kind of the whole bigger picture of this area back here next to the cabin. This comprises maybe, total in all, roughly 1 acre of use, maybe a little bit less, maybe a little bit more, but roughly about 1 acre. So, hope you enjoyed it.